Hey guys, how you doing? Oh, just a gorgeous day here today. Absolutely. It's the false spring is upon us. It's early March, so I'm expecting another snowfall, but for now, I'll take the glorious weather as I can get it. Oh man, it's so nice. If you're inside right now and it's nice outside, just get outside. Just abandon your job, abandon your work. Go. So today, guys, I want to talk about getting on disability here in Ontario, here in Canada, and how we are terrible at it, right? Here in Canada, we have obviously chosen to abandon our disabled people, to abandon people who need to get on disability. And the data supports this. We have new data that's come out recently, and it puts Canada's expenditure on helping people with disabilities in and around the same ballpark as people from Turkey, right? We get beat out by places like Estonia, places like Chile, spend more on helping people with disabilities than we are. And even most shameful of all, our constant competitor, the person we compare ourselves to the most, the nation we compare ourselves to the most, the United States. The United States spends more on this issue than we do. We are so far behind. And it begs the question, why? Why is it that we view people who have disabilities, who have been disabled, as something to be discarded? This is something that really got pointed out to me. I see it, especially in the meme culture, certainly not through the media. Nobody in the media is reporting it. Nobody in the media is talking about it, nor will they ever. But through the meme culture, you see people asking really basic questions like, hey, why is it that when you get on the CERB or the CSB or any of this kind of stuff, it's set at $2,000 a month, and that's considered to be the living standard. You get $2,000 a month so that you can pay your bills and survive in the middle of this pandemic. Well, people who have disabilities, they get like $1,000 a month, right? They're not getting enough to actually live on, and they can't work. Like, what is this disconnected mania that we find ourselves in the middle, where we're literally looking at people who can't sell themselves to the billionaire-dominated market? They physically cannot, perhaps they mentally cannot actually sell themselves to the billionaire-dominated market, which is how the rest of us are resolving this conflict of how do we actually survive in a capitalist society. But people with disabilities can't. They can't do that. They can't sell themselves to the market. And so we say to them, well, here's $1,000, go off and try to make the rest up on your own. But we know you can't. So what happens to these people, right? Scenario one, they just become a burden to everybody around them, right? Because they can't work, they can't participate. They know this, right? They know this. And so the person who we're making, like, maybe they have a mother or a father, right, who is working that job in order to pay their bills by selling themselves into the billionaire-dominated market. And then they've got to turn around and by themselves take care of this individual. And the amount of rage and embarrassment and humiliation that goes into this for the person who's actually on disability, for the person who's actually disabled, right? It's not small. The amount of alienation and anxiety that these people feel but by being put in this position by their society. And then here's the second thing that happens though, because what if they don't have those support services? What if they don't have people around them who are capable or willing to actually participate in keeping this person alive, right? So what do? They go out onto the street and they beg. I see these people every day. I've talked to these people. I know some of these people's names, right? They're on disability. They can't work. They're not capable of working, especially with the high demands that are placed on them from the billionaire-dominated market. And so they're forced out onto the street to beg for money, right? To beg for the bare necessities, to beg for having the ability to feed themselves and to put shelter over their heads, right? This is not how people should live in a society with dignity, right? We abandon people on the regular here in Canada, and it's something of a mania. So this is the 5-minute mark. Speaking of abandoning people, this is when a lot of people dip out. Please subscribe, please like the video. We need more people talking this way in public. We need more people subscribing to channels like mine. Please think about subscribing. So what can we do about this, right? What are some of the real basic things that we can look at? Hey, how about something like a basic income, huh? How about a basic income for people, right? We've got Julie DeBrusen now is passing a motion through the House to try and make the Liberals actually pass legislation in order to actually help people, right? But here's what the Liberals are actually going to do. They're going to turn around and they're going to sit on that motion. They're going to rally against that motion because the Liberals work for the corporate class. They don't work for people like Julie DeBrusen, and they certainly don't work for people with disabilities, right? They're certainly not interested in helping people with disabilities. What they're interested in doing is looking like they're helping people with disabilities while we are among the worst at actually assisting people. Like, there are nations, like your classic Denmark, Scandinavia, Norway, kind of Scandinavian nations, they're spending triple the amount that we are on this issue. They're spending 3 times the amount. We're not a poor country, right? We can afford to take care of these people. We can afford to actually help these people. Are we going to, right? Are we going to? Or are we just going to continue abandoning them? Are we just going to continue looking at the situation that they find themselves in and just say, okay, well, off you go then, fend for yourself, even though we, the government, have declared that you cannot? Like, what is... This is a capitalist mania, right? I'm the Canadian commie, so I get to point out and critique what's going on with the capitalist society. This is a capitalist ideology that even the Americans believe less than we do, right? Even the Americans believe that we should be helping people more than we do here in Canada. And what's the ideology? Very simple: work or starve. If you can't work, you starve. We're willing to ensure that you can live a base subsistence if you're willing to go out and beg on the street, to act as like an icon for us to look at and say, oh yeah, better work hard, or else you're gonna end up on the street. There's this really great scene in the movie The Fisher King. It's a Robin Williams movie where they actually talk to a fellow who's living on the street begging. He's a disabled veteran, right? He had his legs blown off in Vietnam, and he sits on the street and he says, I'm useful to society because I stand as a warning to what society will do to you if you can't participate. Right? George Carlin said, the homeless are there to scare the hell out of the lower class, right? Is this how we want to live? Is this how we want to live our lives? Is this how we want to be? Do we honestly, genuinely want to live in a society where if something unfortunate happens to us, if we have our leg blown off, if we end up with like a crippling disease, if we end up with a crippling mental disorder or something, that the response from the society is literally, we're going to give you barely enough to survive and you've got to make up the rest? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And what's annoying and what's frustrating from my perspective is that we can resolve this. We could have already resolved this. We could resolve this in a day if we wanted to, because things like the basic income are completely doable. Even just upping the amount that these people get. And there's this narrative that exists in our society. Oh, well, if you pay people too much, right? If you pay people too much, then they'll just, sit around and do nothing. Or they'll just commit fraud or something like this. And it's this mania that says we have to sell ourselves into the billionaire-dominated market, that if somebody just sits around, they cease to be valuable. But what's valuable about having people go out onto the street? What's valuable about having people sit on the street? What's valuable about that, right? What would be far more valuable is to get them off the street and have them just live in their home, right? I would much rather have a person wake up, tool around their own house for a little while, go to sleep, maybe have an outing to go get some food or something to the base of their ability, then have their whole day circulate around, well, then you got to go out onto the street and beg for money, which is what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing it every single day. There's a darker aspect to this, by the way. For those of you who stuck around later, you guys know I like to leave the really good stuff till the end. The dark aspect to this is that now Canada is starting to pass legislation to increase the, what do they call it? Medically assisted dying. The acronym is actually MAID, which is some like Black Mirror stuff. Like a maid is coming in to clean up the elderly, right? But now they're looking, so they've passed this legislation so that if you're elderly, if you're old, and you're thinking, yeah, I'm not gonna escape from this whole death thing, so let's just get this medical assisted dying, let's just get on with it. Then you can apply for this and have a doctor actually assist you in an assisted suicide, right? I'm actually for this. There's no exit strategy. We all die. Let's move on. If you're in pain, if you're suffering, right? Let's move on. But now they're going to pass legislation to extend this to the disabled. And I'm reading articles. I'm reading things where there are people who are disabled. There are people with serious physical deficiencies. And what's happening to them? They're getting abandoned. They're getting abandoned in care homes. They're getting abandoned in places. They're getting poor food, poor conditions. They're not getting cleaned. These sorts of things are happening to disabled people. And the system then turns around and says, oh, well, if you're having a miserable time, you can always suicide out, right? Here's the form, right? Here's the dark side to what Canada is doing to the disabled. That if you get disabled bad enough, or you actually need like care, proper institutionalized care, well, the institution is structuring itself to make your life miserable until you finally just suicide out, which they'll put a form in front of your face and help you fill it out. Like, this is the dark side of what's happening here in Canada, as if the issue isn't already dark to begin with. We're abandoning our disabled people. We're putting them in a position where their only option is to literally go out onto the street and then finally to commit suicide with our permission, no less. With our permission and help, no less. We can do better than this. I know that we can do better than this. Something like a basic income would alleviate a lot of these issues, would alleviate a lot of the problems that people are experiencing, would help a great deal. Critics of the basic income will always say like, oh, well, but it doesn't solve the whole issue and it's not a silver bullet and all this kind of stuff. We're not saying it's a silver bullet. We're saying that it helps, and it definitely does. People are trying to pretend as though because it's not the perfect solution that it's not a good thing to do, right? They're allowing the perfect to be the enemy of the good. Something I'm struggling with on this channel these days. Anyway, guys, this is going to be the end of this video. If you've made it here, please, for the love of God, like, share, subscribe. Please subscribe. Every time somebody subscribes, it makes my day just like go through the moon. And hey, if you've got a buck jangle around your pocket, I got a Patreon down below. I could really use the assistance. So guys, we're living in a ridiculous society that is gaslighting us every single day. It's completely not talking about the issues that I'm currently talking about. It's completely ignoring all of this kind of stuff. It's pretending as though everything is going perfectly fine, when in reality, we are living in a capitalist system that is actively attempting to gaslight you, to go along with our destruction and the destruction of everything around us. We need to do everything we can to stop it, and that starts by convincing you that you're doing a great job. You're doing everything you can. I know you are. I know you're feeling anxious. I know you're feeling depressed. I'm on your side, okay? I'm standing here with you in solidarity. Good luck. you're doing your best. Good luck. We're going to need it.